Hello WYLET teachers, this is Tom again, and in my final session with you I'll be talking to you about teaching writing. This of course is a broad field in language learning, and there's a lot of variance to it. I'll be showing you today some different types of writing you can do in your classroom and talking to you about the writing process. So grab your pen and your notebook and let's get started. In this lesson, we have a few objectives for you. By the end of this, you should be able to differentiate between the different types of writing in the language classroom, learn the 5 steps of the writing process, learn about mind mapping, and of course, the structure of a standard 5-paragraph essay. When we talk about teaching writing, many of our students have this kind of reaction. But with clear structure, you can effectively teach writing and get your students to enjoy the process. First, let me ask you, what kind of writing do you know? Well, there's journal writing, creative writing, storytelling, essay writing, descriptive writing, poetry, just to name a few. Before we get started in the writing process, let's talk about some different types of writing you can use in your classroom. First up is journal writing. Journal writing is great because it gives a chance for the students to kind of warm up their brains. And it also gets them to start thinking critically as well and how to express themselves in English. It's an effective tool also for assessing students' language skills and see where their strengths and weaknesses are. And also, it's an informal way for you as a teacher to communicate with your student through a journal, like a dialogue journal. When I'm teaching English language learners, I like to start the first 15 or 20 minutes of the day with journal writing. I write a prompt on the board and I give them a few minutes to think about and understand the prompt. Once they understand it, I put on some nice music and I let them go. The main thing I tell them is keep writing no matter what for the 15 to 20 minutes until the music stops. This is a great way for them to build up fluency in their writing. What kind of prompts do I use? Well, here are a few examples. Describe something funny that happened to you in the past month. Tell us about your best friend. Why is this person your best friend? How long have you been friends? Mahatma Gandhi once said, "My life is my message." What is the message of your life? Why is this message important to you? Give specific details to support your ideas. Usually I give my students a special book that they can use for journal writing. It could be something simple like this, or this with the lines in it, or even simpler like this, a plain orange one. My students really enjoy having this special book because it kind of gives them more ownership of their writing and for the specific task of journal writing. After the 15 to 20 minutes of journal writing, I have my students put their journals in a special designated box in the room. After class, I read each one of these journals and I comment on the entry. Now, when I'm commenting, I'm not critiquing it and looking for spelling and grammar mistakes. I'm just reading what they wrote and what they're thinking about the prompt. I always write a response to it as if it's a dialogue between us. And students really enjoy that because they know that you're taking the time to read and respond to what they've said. Lastly, and very important, I think, is I write, after my comments, I place a sticker. Now, I buy some inexpensive stickers, you can too, and I put a sticker on there. They really enjoy that. If you don't have a budget for stickers, you can always just, if you're an artist, draw a little smiley face or a cat or get a stamp or something like that. This is a very informal, nice way to kind of build up language learning through writing in your English language classroom. Now, what happens if you start reading these journals and start correcting the mistakes that your students are making? Their motivation is going to go down and they're not going to look forward to journal writing anymore. If you would like to, after a week or two of doing this, if you want to tell them that now I'm going to start correcting your journals, maybe for 1 week you can do that because, again, it's a lot of work for you. but it's also something that they may appreciate to getting your feedback on spelling and grammar mistakes. So you might consider that after a few weeks of doing journal writing. Next up is descriptive writing. This is a fun activity to do and I really enjoy doing it. So do students. And you can do it at all levels. Basically, you give your students a picture and you have them write about it. At a beginner level, you can have them describe objects, write simple sentences about what they see in the picture. More advanced levels can do more elaborate description of what they see or create some story about the action or events that are happening in the picture. Now, when you're choosing a picture, you want to select those that have some sort of interesting action or subject in them. Let's look at a few pictures now. These pictures that I'm showing you are ones from my collection that I've taken in my travels around the world. And I really think that they express different actions and are interesting pictures to use in a classroom. If you're interested in this type of activity for your class, I'd suggest start collecting pictures to use in your own class. They can be from magazines or newspapers, or they can be even ones like me, the ones that you take yourself. Just make sure that they have some sort of action or interesting subject in them. If it's just a picture of, I don't know, a flower, there's not much you can write about that. But if it has something, a flower in a garden with a cat under the flower, or bugs or something like that, that gives the students more things to write about. I'm going to give you a little descriptive writing activity. On our Facebook page for the WYLET program, you can see that I've put up some pictures. I want you to choose one of those pictures and spend maybe 10-15 minutes just doing a quick write of it. And I want you to post the picture and your writing on the Facebook page so we can all read it together. Now, the purpose of this is not to produce a perfectly written essay or paragraph. I just want you to do a fast write about something. Get as creative as possible. I know you can do it. And really elaborate. Look at the picture, elaborate. Maybe create some stories about the people in it or what you see. And do that today if you can, and post it on there so we can all enjoy your writing. I'd like to switch gears now and talk to you about the writing process. One of the biggest hurdles our students have in the language classroom is writing down their ideas and providing details and support for those ideas. These 5 steps of the writing process will help you as a teacher teach writing more effectively, and for your students, make the whole process of writing less daunting. The 5 steps are idea, plan, research, write, and review. Let's look at these 5 steps in detail. The first is idea. Idea asks questions, what are we going to talk about? This is where we can brainstorm about things we want to write about. Next is plan. Here we ask the question, what is the purpose of your writing? Essay writing in particular can be put in these 3 categories: narrative, argumentative, and persuasive. Narrative provides information on a particular topic. For example, I may write about the benefits of learning English. Argumentative, the writer discusses both sides of an argument and provides details to support their perspective. For example, English is a better language to learn than Spanish. Persuasive, the writer wants to convince the reader of his or her opinion and through reasoning and details support their position. For example, to improve your life, you should study English. Part of the planning stage for writing is mind mapping. This is a graphic organizer that can help students plan out their writing. I love doing mind mapping because it lets students visualize their ideas on paper. Let's look at one that I've created specially for this tutorial. So imagine I'm a student and my teacher gives me the topic learning English. I'm sure there's a lot I can talk about, but I'm going to keep it to 4 areas. These 4 areas are job, schools, travel, and global language. As you can see, I'm writing really fast, so I hope you can read my writing. For each of these areas, I'll think of ideas for each category. For example, job. Why do I need English? Well, it can give me work at an international company, and looks good on my resume. Schools. Learning English can help me get a scholarship, give me more opportunity to study abroad, and allow me to take online courses that may only be taught in English. Just as a reminder, mind mapping is simply jotting down ideas and can really help your students organize their thoughts. Next is travel. Learning English can help me travel to more places, help me communicate with others, and explore new cultures. Lastly, global language. English can help me communicate with others, make new friends, and it's good for my brain to learn another language. Woohoo! I got my ideas! Here's my mind map all drawn out for you. If you notice some ideas, go into two categories like communicate with others in travel and communicate with people in global language. That's okay if some ideas cover two categories. The process will help you see areas where you may have repetition and think up different ideas to support your categories. Now at this stage, I can have my students go further by giving more details for each of the categories. For example, if we look at job, I wrote, good skill for resume. What details can I give to support this idea? Well, on a resume, an employer wants to see what skills someone has, not just work experience. The more skills you put down, the better chance you have of landing the job. So, putting English down as a language you know besides your native language makes you more employable. As you can see, mind mapping is a vital tool in the writing process because it helps students, especially visual learners like me and probably you, it helps us put our ideas and see them on paper. The biggest challenge, as I've said before, is having students really think about their topics they are writing about. This graphic organizer can help your students become better writers. The next stage is research, finding out information about your topic. Going from the mind map, your students may need to do some searching online or elsewhere to find out more information about their topic. For example, going back to my mind map, I put down that learning English is good for the brain. If that's what I think, okay. But to further support that thought, I may want to go online and look at some studies to support this idea. This doesn't mean we Google something and just cut and paste and put it into our essay straight from a study. No, that's called plagiarism. We want to discourage our students from doing that. No, instead we find the information and paraphrase it or put it in our own words. For my essay on why English is important to learn, I found an article on lifescience.com with some information I could use. Researchers found that young adults proficient in 2 languages perform better on attention tests and had better concentration than those who spoke only 1 language, irrespective of whether they had learned that second language during infancy, childhood, or their teen years. The study appears in the current edition of the journal Frontiers in Psychology, led by Dr. Thomas Bach, a lecturer at Edinburgh's School of Philosophy, Psychology, and Language Sciences. Now, instead of putting this in my essay word for word, because I can't, why can't I, everybody? Tell me. Exactly. It's called plagiarism. I'll put it in my own words, and it'll look something like this. According to Dr. Thomas Bach from the School of Philosophy, Psychology, and Language Sciences in Edinburgh, Scotland, research showed that young adults who know 2 languages well performed better on attention tests and had better concentration than those who knew only 1 language. I find the research stage as a complement to the planning stage. You can think of it as the detail stage, getting details and supporting ideas for your essay. This is especially important if you're writing an argumentative or persuasive essay. You need backup for your opinions. Now it's time to write. This is not the only time your students are going to write their paper, but it's the first time for them to get their ideas and details down on paper. A standard 5-paragraph essay has a specific structure, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. You want your students to use this structure to formulate their writing. The last step in the writing process is review. This is where students will edit their writing after you, as the teacher, provide feedback and make corrections. You can also have your students do peer review, which is very helpful for students to read each other's essays and give feedback and comments. It also helps them in seeing someone else's paper and understanding the writing process better. After review, students will then rewrite their essays as a final draft. The 5 stages of the writing process are designed particularly for essay writing, but you can really use them at all levels. For the beginner level, you can use mind mapping to help students develop their ideas. This can be done for a paragraph or a short writing. In any case, this is an effective method for students to learn the writing process in English. If you have any further questions about the writing process or need clarification on anything I covered, please ask me during the debrief session that follows this session. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you is about hamburgers. Hamburgers? What? How can you talk about food at a time like this? Well, the standard 5-paragraph essay is like a hamburger. The introduction and the conclusion are the buns, and the body of the paragraph is the meat, and the tomatoes, and the cheese, and the lettuce, and everything else you like on a hamburger. It's the good stuff. So the introduction and the conclusion, the buns, hold together the body of the essay, the meat. As an example, let's go back to my mind map about learning English. In my introduction, I would tell the reader exactly what I'm going to write about, why it's important to learn English. In the body of my essay, or the meat, I would talk about the 4 areas that I put on my mind map: jobs, schools, travel, and global language. These would be 4 separate paragraphs, and to strengthen my reasoning, I may want to combine travel and global language since many of the ideas overlap. In these paragraphs, we can provide details for each idea, providing more flavor for our hamburger. My conclusion would be the bottom bun and summarize the points included in my body paragraphs and leave the reader with a final thought on my topic. The introduction gives the reader an idea of what we will talk about in the essay. There is a thesis statement that gives the reader a clue what the writer will discuss. For example, English is an important language worldwide. In many aspects of personal and professional lives, English is becoming more and more common. There are many reasons to study a foreign language, but in today's world, learning English is highly recommended. It will open you up to more job and academic possibilities, make travel easier, and will help you connect with people from other cultures and communities around the globe. Looking at the section I have in bold, this is my thesis or driving idea, and it follows with specific ideas I'll be writing about. Now, in the body of my essay, I will get to the nitty-gritty of the topic. Here are my reasons as I put on my mind map that I will discuss in detail: job, school, travel, and global language. Lastly, in my conclusion, I will restate my thesis and touch upon the ideas I mentioned in detail in the body of my essay. I will leave the reader with something to think about as well. Here's an example. In conclusion, there are more positives than negatives to learning English. It can open up more opportunities in job and academic worlds. In addition, knowing English can broaden your travel horizons and connect you with new people you may never meet. Someone once said that minds are only safe when open. Learning English has helped me become more open to new ideas and experiences. Are you ready to open your mind? I sum up my essay restating the thesis and ideas and leave the reader with a personal thought and ask them a question to think about. If you go into the Teaching Writing Padlet, I've included some materials for you to use when teaching writing. These include ideas for how to start and end an essay and a list of transitional words and phrases to use in body paragraphs. I've also included some sample essays that you can look at to see how they are structured. Yep, like a hamburger. Lastly, I've also included some writing prompts from TOEFL type tests that you can use with your students that are a great way for them to develop ideas and start thinking about things they may never have had an opinion on. Going back to the beginning of my session, I'd like to mention a word that sums up writing: process. Writing is a process, and remember, as teachers, your students won't get it on the first try. But if you teach them the different stages of writing, it will help them understand the process and become better writers. Writing is a process. It can take a lot of time, so you decide what level your students are at and what they can accomplish. But even at any level, teaching them parts of the 5-step process of writing can really help them to improve their writing skills. This concludes our session on writing, and I hope you found it informative. If you have any questions or need clarification, please feel free to ask me in the debrief that follows this session or during my office hours. Please check out the small writing assignment that I posted on Facebook as well. It's not mandatory, but if you do have time, it would be great to read what you write for this assignment. Good luck and thanks for listening. Bye-bye, everybody.